Welcome back. Abandoned at the tender age of 3 at an orphanage by his own mother, Rob Mitchell was a child without an identity. So how did he become one of America's top 10 stockbrokers? Well, let's continue with Sun Mi's interview with Rob Mitchell.
You know what amazes me the most about your story is that when you left the orphanage, you left with $3,000 invested in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
I always wanted to not so much be a multimillionaire as I just didn't want to be a kid from the orphanage. I just always wanted that, and it was a constant war. How do I not be what circumstances are telling me I'm going to be? You know, I wanted the ceiling to be higher. I just didn't know how to get there. And so I decided in early high school that money was going to save me. So I shoveled snow, I detasseled corn, I baled hay, I washed cars, I did everything I could to make money. And I don't have a good explanation for this, but I saved at least 50%. Now, deferred gratification is not something most teenagers understand anyway, especially the guys I grew up with. And I had $3,000 in 1970, which, to put a perspective, would have bought a brand new Ford Mustang.
Wow.
And I'm visiting Gigi one day, and I said, I have money in the bank, and I'm not making much interest. I got to do something different. She said, well, how much do you have? And I told her, and her dentures fell out. She never had $3,000. And so she really stammered, kind of mumbled, said, well, maybe you should be in the stock market. I said, good, how do I do that? She said, I don't know, but she knew a nice attorney, and he agreed to be my custodian. So I'm 16, and we're going down to his broker in downtown Chicago. And I said, well, what stock should I buy? And he said, well, buy at least 2 companies whose products you like. I'm 16, I'm in Illinois, I'm a heathen, I'm going to buy what I like.
You were not saved.
I was not saved.
Okay.
And so I bought 2 companies Illinois companies whose products I liked, McDonald's and Playboy. Yeah, I liked their products, bought their stock.
Not saved.
Not saved. Not saved. I came out of both of them in the Nixon bear market. I had over a double in McDonald's and about 80% in Playboy. And by that time I was like, you know, this Christian thing, I probably shouldn't be owning that stock. So I was out of it.
Which brings me, I'm glad you mentioned that. In your senior year of high school, you were led to really explore whether or not Christ was real, if the Bible was real. What led up to that?
I had this one girl in my sights, and she should have been afraid of a wolf like me, and she wasn't. She had this incredible calm. I mean, what is wrong with her? And we got talking in a day or two, and she said, tell me about your relationship with Jesus. I said, I don't have one. I don't buy into this loving Heavenly Father. It doesn't fit my reality. And she said, well, I don't think you've examined the evidence. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but teenage boys will do a lot of stupid stuff to try and impress a girl.
Yes.
We'll even read the Bible. So I said, fine. So I picked up the Jesus books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, we were drugged to church, and Jesus may have been presented beautifully. I never heard it. There's a difference. I saw a guy got hungry, got thirsty, got tired, got betrayed by people he should have trusted. That one I understood. I saw a guy who healed the deaf, the crippled, the blind. I said, I can't relate to this. I'm a 3-sport letterman. You know, I'm a stud. But then as I started wrestling, I said, haven't you been crippled emotionally by your childhood? And are you perhaps being blind to the promises of this God and deaf to the eyewitness testimonies, not only of people 500 years ago, but people today that said, Jesus Christ changed my life? You know, one of the things that jumped out at me were the 12 disciples. You know, there's intelligentsia going around saying, well, it's just a myth or whatever, da-da-da-da. 11 of these guys were tortured and then brutally killed, not just bullet in the head. And I'm like, you know, I can't find 11 punks in an orphanage who would be tortured and brutally killed to keep a lie going to play a joke on humanity. These guys were serious. This man had radically changed their life, and they will take torture and they will take death before they'll deny who Jesus was. That was pretty wild. Well, then, as C.S. Lewis put much better than I did, the decision became pretty clear. Either this guy was a liar, and the last 2,000 years of Christianity are a very bad joke. The guy's crazy like my mother, and I'm not going to follow my mother anywhere. Or he really is Lord. And I got to where that became the only question. I realized I had to answer that question. And it was September. It was 36 years ago. I don't remember the day. In a little room too small to turn a twin bed around, I prayed a very unconventional prayer. I said, Jesus, if you're real, come into my nightmare and change me. Forgive me my sins, and I'm yours. But if you don't, you're a fraud. Not exactly a Billy Graham prayer. I didn't hear angels sing. I didn't roll on the floor in spiritual ecstasy. But I knew in a moment that the holy God of the universe had reached out of heaven and touched the heart of an angry, bitter punk in an orphanage and began to change my life. And that was 36 years ago, and I still remain amazed.
Wow. You mentioned in another presentation that he healed. He started healing your anger right away.
That was one of the stunning things about it. Nothing changed in my world. I'm still in an orphanage, but inside things were changing. And slowly my anger was being replaced by a sense of peace that I had never, ever felt. My rage, and at-risk teenage boys get swept up in just waves of emotion and rage. It just comes out of the blue, even to us. We don't see it coming. And that starts dissipating. But the other thing that I simply, as hard as those two were, I couldn't wrap my head around, was the sense of hopelessness, that I was doomed to be my childhood. That sense of hopelessness started disappearing, and a sense of hope that somehow, not what I am today by any means, but I could be more than my childhood with Christ's help. And that hope, which had been dead for 10 years, absolutely dead, was outrageous.
Isn't it amazing how God healed Rob so quickly? Still to come, find out what led Rob Mitchell to become a highly successful stockbroker. We'll be right back.
I lose only 1% of my clients a year. That's not net loss, that's actual loss, which is unheard of in my business. I clip about $1 million a month in referrals.